So, when you think about our most fundamental human drive, the survival instinct, what is the very first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, it's usually self-protection, right?
Right, exactly. Like, imagine you're standing right on the edge of a sheer cliff. Before you even have a conscious thought about it, your brain is absolutely screaming at you to step back.
Oh, yeah. It just forces you to build these defensive walls, both physically and psychologically, just to protect your quote-unquote self.
Exactly. And in evolutionary terms, dropping those defenses essentially equals destruction.
Right. It's a biological imperative. It's deeply hardwired into our nervous system. I mean, we're literally programmed to constantly secure our borders, to accumulate resources and shield ourselves from threats.
Because that underlying logic is how our species has managed to stay alive.
Exactly.
But what if this exact biological imperative, like our constant outward grasping, our endless need to defend and build walls around our ego, is actually the root of all our suffering?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Today's deep dive is going into some wildly counterintuitive territory for you guys. We're exploring a survival law where dismantling your defenses, maybe even willingly stepping toward that proverbial cliff, is actually the fastest shortcut to ultimate freedom.
Yeah, we are looking at a complete inversion of how the modern world operates. I mean, it's a system where actively seeking out friction, or what we usually label as intense suffering, might just be the core mechanism that generates genuine joy.
Right, and true capability.
Exactly.
And to understand the mechanics behind this, we're using a very specific, incredibly dense map of spiritual physics today. It's a rare record, and I want to be super precise about our source material before we jump in. So this is produced by Buddhist Practice Incorporated, Australia,
Yeah.
speaker, consultant Benny, a seeker of Buddhist teachings, Venerable Ivy, production, Notebook and Dawn.
And I have to say, the information density in this specific record is staggering.
It really is.
Over the course of this conversation, we're going to break down the mechanics of why dropping your safety nets unlocks this, like, cosmic level of energy.
Yeah, and why inanimate objects like rocks might actually hold more focused power than a human being.
Right. And eventually, how to take a scattered, anxious mind and forge it into indestructible glass.
So let's start with that concept of the safety net, because the source brings up a historical example that is honestly incredibly jarring to our modern sensibility.
Oh, definitely.
It involves the past life story of the Earth Store Bodhisattva, also known as Ksitigarbha. Before achieving that status, she was an ordinary woman trying to save her mother from hell.
Right.
But she didn't just, make a generous donation to a temple. The record states she liquidated literally all of her assets and prayed until her physical body was severely damaged.
Yeah, it reads like a total self-destructive zeroing out of her own existence.
Which is wild. I mean, I have to push back on the logic of it, though. If you want to do good in the world, why not give, 80% and keep 20% so you can pay next month's rent?
Right, keep a buffer.
Yeah. Because if I give away my rent money, I end up on the street, and then I just become a burden to society.
Yeah.
So how does making myself destitute and physically ill help anyone else? Why completely destroy your own safety net?
Well, it's because that 20% you're holding on to, it does something very specific to your psychology.
Okay, like what?
The source material defines the act of keeping that safety net as protecting afflictions. When you retain that 20% for rent, you are drawing a firm boundary.
Like a wall.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
building this psychological dam and saying, okay, this side of the dam is me, and I need to protect it from everything on the other side.
So the safety net is really just a physical manifestation of the ego.
Exactly. Think of the ego as this massive, restrictive funnel. Whenever you generate goodwill or, a desire to help, it has to pass through this funnel.
Right.
And as it passes through, it gets analyzed, it gets drained and diluted by all your worldly calculations.
Like, will I have enough left for retirement? Or what if I get sick tomorrow?
Or, what will my neighbors think of me? Right.
Yeah.
So by the time your good intention actually makes it out the bottom of the funnel, the energy has lost all its purity.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see where this is going. By completely liquidating everything, giving 100% and pushing past the point of physical safety, she wasn't merely being generous, she was taking a sledgehammer to the funnel itself.
She smashed it completely, yeah. By zeroing out, she removed all internal resistance. There was just no longer a self-boundary to defend.
The text says this act allowed her to instantly connect to the universe's most massive energy field, and that she emptied hell in a single day.
Right.
Which, I mean, That sounds like magic. How does smashing a psychological funnel connect you to a cosmic energy field?
I mean, it's less about magic and more about spiritual physics.
Yeah.
Think back to the dam metaphor. The universal energy field isn't something you magically summon. It is the natural flowing state of interconnectedness.
Right.
So when you are hyper-focused on protecting your 20%, your dam is blocking the river. When you completely drop the dam of the self, you don't generate the energy yourself.
You just let it through.
Exactly. You
Ah.
become a completely unobstructed conduit for the ocean to rush through. The power scales exponentially because the bottleneck of you is just gone.
Man, that reframes generosity entirely. But it forces a really uncomfortable question like, what exactly are we hoarding behind that dam? If smashing the funnel is the goal, we have to look at the materials we are using to build it in the first place.
Right. And the source categorizes our hoarding into two crucial Buddhist concepts regarding cause and effect, Xingbao and Yibao.
Break those down for me.
So Zhengbao translates to direct retribution. Basically, this is your physical body. It's your very life, your health, your physical existence.
Okay.
And Yibao is dependent retribution, which encompasses your environment. So your wealth, your house, your social status, your reputation.
Basically the two primary things we spend every waking moment agonizing over.
Pretty much, yeah.
We go to the gym for Zheng Bao, and we work 60 hours a week for Yu Bao.
Yeah, we dedicate our entire lives to reinforcing those walls. But the text points out this brutal, unavoidable truth about cause and effect.
Which is?
No matter how high the walls you build around your body and your wealth are, death eventually acts as the ultimate repo man. It forcefully repossesses both of them.
Yeah. You can't take a single cent with you, and your body goes back to the earth.
Right, which brings up this massive distinction the text makes between active and passive loss.
Well, right, because if I'm going to lose my house and my body eventually anyway, why does it matter how it happened?
Because of the psychological and karmic residue it leaves behind. When death forces you to lose your body and your wealth passively, it generates this sheer terror.
Obviously.
It generates profound resentment and clinging. In the text, this is referred to as the suffering of separation. You're being stripped of what you fiercely claim is yours, against your will, and that friction is just excruciating.
It's like being violently evicted from your own existence.
Exactly. So contrast that with the Bodhisattva logic, which flips the dynamic. Since the debt will inevitably be called in, since you're guaranteed to lose the body, and the wealth actively handing it over first, completely changes the mechanics of the event.
How so?
Actively relinquishing your body and wealth for the sake of others transforms the loss. It stops being a terrifying, passive punishment, and it becomes a high-dimensional merit generator.
Oh, wow. So you are taking a depreciating asset like a body that is destined to age and decay anyway, and actively converting it into a currency that purchases something eternal.
Yes, you're beating the inevitable decay to the punch.
Okay, but, and I'm hung up on this, if giving everything away actively is the ultimate life hack for the giver, what happens on the receiving end?
Oh.
Because if I'm dumping all my wealth and safety nets onto someone else, aren't I just passing the burden of the ego funnel onto them? The source takes a really sharp turn here into the concept of debt, specifically stating that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas desperately want you to owe them.
They do. They are actively seeking to create a karmic deficit where you are entirely in their debt.
I'm not going to lie, my immediate reaction to this is pure skepticism.
I get that.
Like, that sounds incredibly manipulative. How is a supposedly enlightened bodhisattva trying to make you owe them any different from, like, a toxic real-world loan shark who uses debt to trap you and control your life?
It's a completely natural human reaction to feel that way.
Right.
But we are projecting our own flawed, extractive financial systems onto a higher dimension.
Okay, so what's the difference?
The distinction lies in the mechanics of the universe. A loan shark uses debt to extract value from you until you're empty. A bodhisattva uses debt to install a network cable.
A network cable. Explain how that works.
So the text refers to this karma connection as yin-yuan. The universe operates as this vast, strictly regulated network of cause and effect.
Right.
If you do not owe a bodhisattva, if you've never established any kind of energetic or karmic link with them in the past, they literally have no access point to intervene when you're suffering.
Oh, I see.
They can't just break the fundamental laws of cause and effect to save a random node on the network that they have no connection to.
There's actually an incredible analogy in the record about a world-ending disaster that illustrates this perfectly.
Yeah, the famine.
Right. Imagine a massive famine or a terminal plague. The text suggests that a highly advanced bodhisattva might manifest physically as a life-saving herb growing right at your feet in the dirt. The cure is literally inches away.
It is broadcasting salvation directly at you.
But, and this is the terrifying part, if you haven't established a karmic debt with that specific bodhisattva in a past life, your frequencies simply won't match.
Right.
You will look down, see the exact herb that could save your life, assume it's just some useless, ugly weed, step right on it, and die. You crush your own salvation because you didn't have the receiver installed to recognize it, and the debt is the receiver.
It shifts our entire perspective on spiritual intervention, doesn't it? The Bodhisattva is constantly broadcasting. But if you haven't willingly opened a port by accepting their help previously, by owing them, the signal just bounces right off you.
Yeah.
You cannot tune into their frequency without that pre-existing yin-yuan.
Which brings up one of the most brain-breaking concepts from this material for me. The idea that a highly advanced spiritual being would choose to manifest as a mindless, seemingly dead herb.
Yeah.
Because the text states, sentient and non-sentient share the same seed. It suggests that the basic elements like wind, fire, water, earth aren't just dead matter, they actually hold God-level energy.
Yes. And their power comes directly from their singular, unbroken focus.
This is where I really struggle, though. Humans are supposedly the crown of creation, right? We have rich emotions, complex brains, art, philosophy, the ability to reason.
Right.
Yet we are so fragile that missing a single night of sleep ruins our entire week. How can a dumb rock or a gust of wind supposedly have more spiritual power than a human being with a highly evolved cerebral cortex?
To understand that, we have to look at how we define emotion, or king. Modern society worships human emotion. We view it as our greatest strength, right? Like the defining characteristic of our humanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
The source material, however, defines emotion as entanglement. It is an endless, chaotic cycle of background processing.
Okay, let's ground this in a modern analogy. The human mind is essentially a smartphone.
Yes.
But we don't just have one app open and running cleanly. We are running hundreds of background apps simultaneously all day long.
We're constantly processing past regrets and future anxieties.
Right. We're worrying about the mortgage. We're replaying a perceived insult from a coworker that happened 3 years ago. We're stressing about what to make for dinner, obsessing over how many likes a photo got.
Yeah.
Our CPU is just completely maxed out on useless tasks. We are constantly, massively leaking battery.
And by the end of the day, you're at 1% battery, completely exhausted, despite having done very little physical labor. Your processing power is entirely consumed by these chaotic emotional entanglements.
It's exhausting.
Now look at the non-sentient elements.
A rock.
Right, the rock. The rock lacks those chaotic background apps entirely. A rock does not worry about its mortgage.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold on to resentment about being stepped on yesterday. It simply exists as a rock. Because it has absolute zero emotional entanglement, its focus is 100%.
Wow.
It isn't leaking a single percentage of its battery. That pure, unleaking focus on its own singular existence is what generates massive, stable power. It is undivided energy.
So our prized human emotions, the very things we think make us special, are actually the things draining our system and keeping us weak.
Exactly.
But if our battery leak is caused by the messy, painful entanglements of interacting with other humans, wouldn't the logical fix be to just escape?
Like run away.
Yeah. To go find a pure, painless environment, isolate ourselves in a cabin in the woods, and just stop opening new apps.
That is the instinct of almost every spiritual seeker. But consultant Benny presents a highly counterintuitive stance on this. The text argues that in a pure, painless, perfectly safe environment, you actually have zero chance of achieving ultimate awakening.
Wait, zero chance? None at all?
None. Because profound capability and great compassion cannot exist in a vacuum. They require extreme friction to be stress-tested and forged.
This reminds me of how we train modern artificial intelligence systems.
Oh, how so?
Well, if you take a brand new AI model and you put it in a perfect sterilized sandbox where it only ever sees clean, perfectly formatted, polite data, it performs flawlessly. It looks like a genius.
Sure.
But the second you take that pristine AI and connect it to the real, toxic, chaotic internet with all its trolls, paradoxes, and contradictory information, the AI panics, it hallucinates, it outputs garbage, and it eventually crashes. Pure, frictionless data cannot train a robust system.
That is such a brilliant analogy. The system has to learn how to process adversarial data without breaking down. And if we apply that to the source material, we look at the example of Shakyamuni Buddha.
Right.
He intentionally chose to incarnate in the Saha world, which is the universe we currently inhabit.
Right.
The text describes this specific world as the most brutal, adversarial training ground imaginable.
Yeah, the record mentions he was surrounded by incredibly stubborn beings, some of whom literally wanted to eat his flesh.
Right. We can read that literally, or we can translate it to our modern psychological reality.
So the flesh-eating beavens are...
The people who betray you deeply. They're the toxic business partners who steal from you, the family members who drain you, the ultimate adversarial relationships in your life.
Oh, wow.
Shakyamuni didn't seek out the sterilized sandbox. He deliberately sought out the most toxic, high-friction data available.
And by doing that,
By spending lifetimes patiently enduring this extreme suffering and betrayal, without letting his system crash, without closing his heart or losing his compassion, his system achieved limitless processing power.
so the friction wasn't an obstacle to his awakening.
Exactly. The friction was the fuel required for it.
The suffering was the feature, not the bug.
Yes.
But let's bring this down to earth for our daily lives. We are currently stuck in this chaotic internet of a world. And as the text points out, our minds are acting like scattered sand, leaking energy everywhere.
Yeah, it mentions we have scattered roots. Like, we can't even stay off our phones for 5 minutes without our brains twitching for dopamine.
Exactly. So how do we practically patch our operating system while living right in the middle of this mess?
The text offers a very specific, highly practical patch. It's a Zen technique centered around the concept of the Huatu.
Okay.
A Huatu is a phrase or a prompt used to anchor the mind. But the specific one highlighted in this record is completely illogical. The prompt is, holding a hoe empty-handed.
Holding a hoe empty-handed. Okay? If your hands are empty, you physically cannot be holding a hoe. It intentionally breaks the rules of logic.
It does.
So is the goal here to just input a logic loop into the brain that causes it to blue screen and shut down completely? Are we just trying to force a hard reboot so the anxiety apps close?
That is a pervasive misconception about Zen practice. This idea that you are trying to turn your brain off, become a zombie, or make the system crash. That is absolutely not the goal.
Oh.
The illogical prompt doesn't make you crash, and it doesn't induce a trance where you fall asleep. What it does is act as a localized firewall for your attention.
How does repeating a nonsense phrase act as a firewall?
Because your logical problem-solving mind cannot solve the paradox, it gets hooked on it. It locks up your CPU.
Okay.
And by getting fully 100% stuck on this one unsolvable phrase, it instantly cuts off the processing power to all those other leaking background apps. You literally cannot worry about your mortgage or replay that argument from yesterday because your entire processing bandwidth is locked onto holding a hoe empty-handed.
Wow.
It achieves a state of pure, crystal clear awareness without the debilitating battery drain of emotional entanglement.
It essentially forces the mind into that same unbroken focus that the non-sentient rock has, but while maintaining human awareness. That is brilliant.
It really is.
Which leads us to the final metaphor from the text about how we ultimately transform our minds. Right now, as we established, our minds are like loose, scattered sand.
And loose sand cannot bear weight. It cannot build a structure, and it just blows away at the slightest gust of wind. To transform that scattered sand into something structural and enduring, the text outlines two distinct paths.
Okay.
Path one is the high heat approach.
This maps directly back to the idea of friction. High heat is extreme suffering. It's a devastating life crisis, the loss of a loved one, a total financial collapse, or navigating a severely toxic environment.
Exactly. That intense suffering acts as a psychological furnace.
Yeah.
If you can endure that high heat without completely scattering or succumbing to bitterness, that extreme temperature literally melts the loose sand of your mind, fusing it into indestructible glass.
But let's be real, a lot of us might not survive the furnace. What if the high heat just incinerates you and breaks you down entirely?
Well, for those who cannot withstand the raw furnace, there's path two, which is adding cement.
Cement.
The cement represents external structure,
Yeah.
the vows, the strict teachings, and the direct guidance of a master. By mixing this heavy external cement with your scattered sand, you bind it together into solid concrete.
So it's a different material, but it achieves the same structural integrity.
Right.
But the crucial takeaway for both of these paths is that neither of them happens in a vacuum. Both melting sand into glass and binding it into concrete require severe external friction or intense external intervention. You absolutely cannot remodel the self while sitting comfortably on the couch scrolling through your phone.
No, you require the catalyst of discomfort. Transformation demands it.
Wow. Let's pull all of these threads together because we've covered a massive paradigm-shifting amount of ground today. We started by learning that actively sacrificing our deeply held defenses and zeroing out our ego is what actually opens the conduit to cosmic energy.
Yeah.
We reframed karmic debt, seeing it not as a toxic trap, but as a necessary network cable to receive help. We explored the humbling reality that our prized, complex human emotions are often just background apps draining our battery, while a simple rock holds the power of pure focus.
Incredible, right.
And finally, we saw that profound suffering isn't just something to be miserably endured, it is the exact high heat required to forge our scattered, fragile minds into indestructible glass.
It forces a total reevaluation of how we view adversity. The obstacles aren't in the way. The obstacles are the very mechanism of growth.
It truly is a complete inversion of our daily logic. And for you listening, this deep dive wasn't just an exercise in abstract Buddhist philosophy. It wasn't about finding a way to spiritually bypass or escape your reality. This source material provided an actual alchemy manual to help you take the absolute worst, most painful, high-friction parts of your reality and actively convert them into power.
Which leaves us with a critical, somewhat unsettling question to consider as we close.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
As modern humans, we spend almost every waking moment and vast amounts of money trying to build a perfectly safe, comfortable, frictionless life. We meticulously design our days to avoid difficult people, and we dodge pain, inconvenience, and high heat at all costs.
We are constantly trying to build the sterilized AI sandbox for ourselves.
We are. But if extreme friction, adversarial data, and intense high heat are the only catalysts capable of melting our scattered sand into indestructible glass, is the comfortable, meticulously safe life you are constantly chasing actually the most dangerous, lethal trap of all?
Man. So the next time you find yourself standing near the edge and your brain is screaming at you to avoid a painful situation or a difficult person, ask yourself if you are smartly building a defensive wall or if you are simply walking away from the very fire meant to set you free.